So my guest today is Sam Shepler. Sam is the founder of Testimonial Hero, a service company helping businesses create video testimonials to build trust and accelerate the buyer's journey. Before Testimonial Hero, Sam built a video production agency called Skyscope that was acquired in 2016. Since the acquisition, Sam's also been involved in a venture partner as a venture partner at Next Gen Ventures. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Etienne. It's great to be here.
Great. So first question, maybe. So why video? Like, what got you interested in video? What made you decide to start two different businesses around video production?
Yeah. So I think, the real answer is like I've always had a sort of a natural affinity for video. So kind of just playing to my, strengths, I guess. So like as a kid, at 10 years old, I was making videos, with my friends, back in the day, and and making snowboarding films and all these things, and then eventually I kind of got the entrepreneurship bug. So I was like, okay, what valuable skills do I have to apply? And the most valuable skill that I had to apply was video.
Okay.
And I think that's always just for people starting out, that's always a good thing. It's like, well, step one is like get some rare and valuable skills, right? And then figure out how to apply them. And for me, that that skill was definitely video. So that sort of has been the unifying theme for all my companies so far.
Okay. And so you were based around Boston. Now you're born, I think, in Connecticut. So there's certainly a lot of great successes models in the of product organizations in the ecosystem in Boston. So what made you decide to build a service company?
Yeah. So so it was kind of accidental, and so basically, I started my first company while I was finishing up college. Didn't really know this was Skyscope. Didn't really, know much about anything. And it just kind of, people started paying me to make videos for them, right?
Okay.
And that sort of took off. So that was a the pretty traditional agency business. After we had the opportunity to sell that to a PR company who was looking to basically bolt on a video production arm, I had the opportunity to like pause and take a step back, right? And like actually I never wanted to start a services company.
Okay.
And that wasn't like I tried to start a software company after
Okay.
that, right? That didn't take off. So like basically like a year after I sold my first company, I was like, all right, well, like I'm tired of getting excited for like a month and like invalidating these ideas. I just want to do something that will drive revenue that I know works, right?
Okay.
And then I basically said to myself is like, what would it look like if I took what I knew and which was video, picked a very specific niche of it, which was customer testimonials,
Okay.
and then tried to actually layer and innovate on that to make it easier, and do it in a really a completely different and better way, right? So like it was really like the prompt is like if I was trying to solve like the problem that B2B marketers have around video testimonial creation, how would I do it, regardless of the technology or the services element, because like our vision is really at Testimonial Hero, our vision is to be, a tech-enabled service, and so we're not, we're trying to take the best parts of, human touch, as well as, technology layered on that to, increase the customer experience and obviously make it more scalable. Because that's, I think, that's the key. I think with the service business is like you have to see a pathway to scalability, in one shape or form, right? And I'm sure we can talk more about that, but like, the one answer to that is, is tech-enabled services, right? So it's like, companies like rev.com is a great example where, it fundamentally is a transcription service, but they've layered on, proprietary first-party technology to, handle, 100x the volume of transcripts with, the same amount of people, right? So that's, basically, and there's other examples of that, some of them successful, some of them not, right? Like Atrium, the legal firm, is a big example of like
just in time.
tech enabled services for law that didn't end up panning out, right? But yeah, I'm super excited about tech enabled services, and it's a big opportunity. Pilot.com, bench.co, those are some good examples. But yeah, I'm super excited right now about taking the best of what can only come with like a service and human touch, and then asking, how can we layer technology, on top of that to both increase the scalability and make it a really attractive business for us, but just as importantly, make it, just a completely, really improve the customer experience and the value for, of course, the customer.
Well, okay, so we skipped over a little bit to like, how do you actually like lock in on like testimonies? Like there's a bunch of different things you could have done. Like why that specifically?
Yeah, great question. So, essentially, just like in your book, you sort of mentioned, which is great, obviously. And I think there's a part in your book where you mentioned like 50% of founders got their idea for their company at, the previous job, right?
Yeah.
And like, for me, I got it at my previous job, but really just my previous company.
Okay.
That I was running. And what the insight was that, the most, the projects that, our clients had the, at Skyscope had the biggest success with were testimonials. And they were also something that we could put a process behind, right?
Okay.
So like, and they had the, willingness to pay was there as well. So like, if I sort of graphed it, and then also there was, founder market fit too. I personally love them. I believed in them. I actually, really deeply believe that the best way to communicate value is through the voice of the customer. And it's something I'm really passionate about, like as compared to like, an sort of like an advertisement, which, is it's an advertisement, right? It's not necessarily, buyers are going to be skeptical of that, right? But communicating through the voice of the customer is extremely effective, and actually is what buyers want. So it's something I was like personally passionate about. The willingness to pay was there.
Okay.
Scalability was there. It's something we could put a process behind. So those are all things that I looked at, and I continue to look at as I like think about other services that could be, tech enabled and scaled. It's really like, is this valuable to the customer, and like, is this scalable, for me, as in terms of like the process we'd have to put behind it.
Okay, so that's great. So you kind of locked in on like a sub need or a sub problem that the customers that you had before had, and you kind of scale that, or try to find a way to scale that. So what do you feel makes customer development different for service companies versus maybe product companies, or versus even service tech-enabled service companies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think something that I'm still figuring out and trying to learn more about every day, right? And I'd love to, get your take on it too. But I think for us, in my experience, it is, slightly easier in some respects, because you're delivering the service, and you can really like, get feedback every time, and every new customer you can just quickly adapt like, because it's so hands-on. You don't have to, spend time, writing a new, feature, or launching a new feature that could take like a couple months. You can say, okay, I learned something in this service experience. Let's apply it immediately in next call that I have with the new customer, right? So I think, and that's, I think, one of the benefits of services is that, and again, I think you underscore this in the book so well, is like, working as a service, like, gives you the visibility into the business problems, and building the proximity with customers, and then you get that domain expertise. So I think it's easier in a lot of respects. That being said, I think it's still, you still need to do it, because, like, customers aren't always gonna, even if they're happy, they're not raising their hand to tell you what they want. Like, you still kind of have to, like, read between the lines, and like, for example, with us, like, the big thing I thought about is, like, okay, like, how would we create, okay, so, like, video testimonials are, are incredibly important. How would we take, but they're kind of complex, and there's a lot of friction. You might have to find a local partner, or fly a videographer across the country. What would the dream situation be for marketers? Like, how could we just remove the complexity from that? So we, what we ended up doing with our first iteration of Testimonial Hero, and before COVID, was we built a global network of videographers all around the world. Trained them, and onboarded them, such that previously, like, customers would pay us to fly around the world, right? And that wasn't effective for anyone. And so we basically were like, look, like, we're going to figure out a more modern way to do it. Um, Customers never asked us to do that, but they were thrilled when we did. So it's like, sort of like, paying it. It's a mix, I think, between asking them and then, like, paying attention to friction in the process.
Okay.
That's sort of implied.
Okay. So why do you feel like there's a lot of service organizations out there? Like, why do you feel some organizations never make the transition into tech-enabled services and or like product itself?
Yeah. So I think, well, for one, I mean, obviously, some of them may not need to, right? I mean, it just depends, right? There's no, there's nothing inherently good or bad about scaling further. Like, but if you do want to do it, which I do, and I personally, yeah, I think first step is, like, for any founder, is, like, getting clear on what you want, and then kind of working from there. And I personally, like, I enjoy the intellectual challenge of, like, seeing how far we can scale this, and then technology becomes essential. I think, in terms of why why it doesn't happen, I would say, um, yeah, it's a lot of things. I think, I mean, it's easy if you have a pretty, like, working business on the services front. It's easy to kind of just let the status quo continue on, and also, it's not something that a lot of services founders are familiar with, right? Technology, and I think that's changing. I think no code is going to be super exciting, like, as a movement, to make it easy for more businesses to become more tech enabled. And that is super exciting, because now you can, with Zapier and Airtable and Webflow, like, it's quite, you can learn it yourself, or you can pay someone for a lot less cost than having, like, a first party software built, and you can add a lot of scalability. So I think, yeah, it's been a harder, and luckily, it's getting easier and easier. So I think we're going to see, much more things changing from pure services to tech enabled services. Also, I think just, things are changing in terms of, how buyers want to buy, like, and, productized services as well, I think are important to note. It's like, before, people were happy to, like, hop on a call and, like, get pricing, or, like, sit through a demo, but, like, everyone's so busy now. It's like, we've been sort of, now the expectation is, like, okay, like, make it super clear for me, productize it, help me buy, or else like I'm probably not going to, engage. Right. So yeah, those are two big, I think, like macro trends that I see as it pertains to that.
Yeah, it's interesting because you clearly, well, one, you were thinking about building maybe product beforehand. So you definitely had that mindset, but you're also always looking at it as, how can I remove the inefficiencies? How can I improve this? Maybe it's a mindset thing, or maybe it's just the models that you're looking at. But you're definitely not the only person looking into this, for sure. Like a lot of people that bought my book, actually, surprisingly, like I've been either like customer development firm, development firm, or like marketing agencies. Like there seems to be a lot of people looking at or interested in doing some kind of transition like that, or some addition to their business. But like I'm wondering, like, why are, like, what's keeping these people from doing this specifically? Because there's clear advantages that you mentioned, like that in combining technology with services that are uniquely you brought the, I don't know, I'm wondering, like, so how would you advise another service company to look at this specifically? Say it's an existing company that have been around for 5 years or something like that, is successful in their sector. uh, how would you advise them to start looking at opportunities for them to tack on maybe a more technology or product based
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first tactical tip would be like have someone who's really familiar with Zapier, just start to automate everything, right? Um, that like that's like not me at all, but like my head of ops, he's like, loves Zapier, and like, there's other, tools out there, Integromat, same idea, but like, the point being, it's like, think what we can, optimize, automate, or eliminate, right? And it's just easier than ever to automate a lot of stuff. So that's one thing, I would say. Um, I think the other, thing is like, and this is something that I'm still kind of learning about as like the tech enabled services space sort of matures, but to some extent it's like a kind of a strategy decision on pricing, and like because like a lot of tech enabled services to date that we've seen, the it's not necessarily like a premium service in a lot of ways. I mean, it's premium, but it's not like ultra premium, right? Like, there's a reason why like the best advertising agencies who charge like $1 million like a year, it's like their website is like a artsy little thing, and you submit a form and talk to their rep, whatever, or
with the
their
human
like
touch?
creative
Yeah.
directors, right? Yeah, and so it's like I think it's getting clear on like, do you want to like pay what game you want to play, right? And to some extent, like I think the promise of tech enabled services is like exceptional quality at a disruptive price point, right? And that's relative, and I think obviously like a disruptive price point is relative. It doesn't mean it's cheap. Like you know um so like for us, like we are Testimonial Hero, like we're a fraction of the cost of like a big agency to produce your customer testimonial videos, a fraction of the cost with like most of the quality, or if not more quality, right? um but we're still not cheap, so it is relative. But I think like frankly, like I don't think like tech enabled services are for everyone, because if you're just trying to be a super boutique, super hands on, absolutely charge as much as you can in your services business, like that's not quite yet the method. I think the sort of like what the where tech enabled services are heading. On the other hand, if you want to have amazing margins, have a super scalable service, and deliver incredible quality at like an extremely disruptive like price point, relatively speaking, um and really be able to kind of, as a founder or owner, really step back from everything to the day to day. Like that's, I mean, that's my personal goal, is like to get the business to be owner independent, right?
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think, those are, I guess, a couple, I'll pause there, but those are a couple of my thoughts on all things
So
tech-enabled services.
yeah, so that's super interesting. So there's also like a pricing component, or whether if you want to be say perceived as exactly like a boutique agency, that might not be the right path, because you might be people might be looking for that, really like that hand holding, like working specifically closely with an agency. Yeah, that does make sense quite a bit. So okay, so in that case, like you guys recently acquired a company called Applause Lab. Congrats. So why did you decide to go down that path, and what made this a good fit for you guys?
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, it's a great question. So basically, the um, I think it's important to give a little context on like what we do, and then I'll tell you, why it fit in. So our main Testimonial Hero, like our main product offering at the moment, we're obviously recording this in that COVID-19 times, is remote customer testimonial creation. So, we help, B2B software marketers at, over 100 different companies, UiPath, Google, Medallia, Insight Squared, many others, to create remote customer testimonial videos. So the current, process that we have, it's, fairly hands-on, and, a human touch to get a exceptionally high quality result, right? So like, that's really why our customers choose us. If you want the absolutely the highest quality, remote testimonials, you're going to work with Testimonial Hero. The opportunity that we saw with Applause Lab was more scalability, and still good quality, but eliminating a very human part of the process, which was like a one-on-one interview. So with Applause Lab, the way that their technology and platform is set up, it's more of it's asynchronous. So like it's capturing the testimonial asynchronous, so you can just blast out a link. So if you're, for example, a if and actually, like, I see that especially being super attractive for different markets that we're not currently serving. So specifically e-commerce companies, because e-commerce companies, they it's different than B2B, and you don't have that close relationship with every customer, but you have a massive email list of customers, right?
Okay.
So like our vision with their technology and is giving it's like a slightly different market, and way more scalable, and less expensive than our current situation, for customers who want to go down that route, that are okay with something good, and just want it to be like more scalable. Like they want to blast out a link to their email list and capture 50 testimonials that day.
So I was kind of setting you up a little bit with the question. So you mentioned before that you got to get really good at Zapier. There's different ways to spot like the inefficiency. Like, how do acquisitions play into this? Like, you acquired a technology company that was in the sector that you guys were in. Like, how does that fit in as a solution to be able to maybe tack that on to a service company, or maybe integrate that in your service stack for in your stack for your company?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a decision in terms of like build versus buy, right? And I think there's so many variables, and it's different in every situation. That being said, if you get a chance and the price is right, it's awesome, right? And because then you're getting something like with Applause, like we got something with an existing customer list on top of the technology, and like not all of their technology was like first party technology, so it's not like and that's the case with most like, tech enabled, companies, obviously it's like, and I think that's good, right? It's like, development is expensive, like wait as long as possible to build custom software, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, if you can glue some stuff together with third party tools, like that's great. Like there's, so yeah, I think, yeah, it's like, it's always a good opportunity. And then you just got to weigh that, like build versus buy, pros and cons, and of course just the overall, price in terms of the deal. So, and then other strategic things, right? Like for us, like, that was like a kind of a good competitive acquisition too, because it's that we're a potential competitor in a lot of respects, or could be. So yeah, I guess just like understanding like how you value all those things, and at least that's how I think about it.
Well, I think one big part there as well is it's the acceleration as well. So like one great thing about a service company is that you have money coming in as well. So like if you can use that as a way to kind of speed up your process towards being tech enabled, that could be a great thing. I have a contact, like they have an agency in email marketing, and they actually built a platform over 3 years, spent $150,000 building like an email marketing platform that never actually launched. And you look at like the opportunity costs of maybe acquiring something, maybe a lower end version of that, and then starting from that could have been much faster to market, and then at least see the response, and or maybe scale that afterwards. So definitely a lot of value there.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, I think like we're seeing more like in acquisition entrepreneurship, and generally speaking, I think I'm a really big fan of it. Especially if you can do like seller side financing, where you basically, use the seller uses the business as collateral, and like, basically, yeah, that just makes it like seller side financing is super great if you can get a deal like that. We did just pay cash, for Applause Lab, but they were about a year into it, so
Okay.
it wasn't like, it was something we could afford, because like you said, like we have great cash flows because of our services, which is another, benefit I think to services businesses, is like kind of like, and that's how I think of it as like Testimonial Hero. It's like kind of like infinite runway, right? God willing, right? Like knock
Yeah.
on wood there,
No
but
pandemic.
yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, hey, if we survive the pandemic, I think we can survive, just
Definitely.
about
Yeah.
anything, right?
Definitely.
But but yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great to have a services business be, the bedrock of, um, what you can build a product business around later on. And I think that's sort of like underappreciated in some respects, and like the, um, general entrepreneurship community. Obviously, it's not, if you're not trying to build something like venture scale, especially, services, and even if you are, I mean, services are a great way to, get proximity to the customer, and just have, that sort of, profitable business, cash flowing, sort of infinite runway to then take, some great, moonshot swings off of.
So how would you advise, say, agency owner, or like a service organization, the owner of a service organization, to kind of look for these opportunities? Like you mentioned that Applause Lab was 1 year old, so they were probably not that visible on the market at that stage. But like, how would you advise to like be able to spot those before they become either too valuable to buy, or too competitive, or any other variation of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, in yeah, well, I can tell you what how it happened for me, and but basically, so I had, developed a relationship with their founder, Tyler, because he, was aware of Testimonial Hero, and just, we just hit it off like from the early days. And I was kind of, I was giving him, initially we made a small investment, in his company. So we first
Okay.
of all, like, he reached out. How it worked, was like, someone introduced him to me because I was like sort of known in the testimonial space. We hit it off. I was like, cool, this is neat. Let's make an investment. So we made a small like angel investment in his company. And then, basically over time, like, I was just like, you know what, like, let's just acquire this. Well, what do you say? And so, like, I don't know what other people can learn from that, other than, maybe like, just, keep an open mind, and like, be helpful, and you never know where it will go. That's kind of like, I was basically, working with him in the early days of the business to kind of advise him. Right. I was an advisor. So, yeah, I think, you know, and having a personal brand helps. I don't have a big personal brand personally. Like, and it's not something I've, focused on too much, but I guess I had enough of one where someone heard of that he was building a testimonial company.
And
They thought he
connected
should
it too.
talk with me,
Yeah.
and that's how it all connected. So I think, those are all, at least, in this instance, those are, potentially some things to take away from it.
But it does sound like there's an interesting pattern as well, like how you found I guess the niche for testimonials from your first company, how you found that maybe, for example, e-commerce might be an interesting way to go, but as well how you found it, like, it's kind of like always staying close to the customer and kind of understanding like what are the solutions that they're using and the opportunities out there. That's interesting. So maybe as a more general question, so how would you advise a new entrepreneur to think about business opportunities?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, you know, it's there's a couple of things that come to mind. Like, one of them is, thinking about being like, it's kind of like a Venn diagram. If you have like three overlapping circles, it's like, what you're personally like really good at, you know, and what's your like, rare or valuable skill. And then, what the market needs. And then, I mean, really, there could be a lot of circles, right? Like, timing is a huge one.
Yeah.
That's mass. Like, timing is everything, frankly. But it's really like, just the overlapping of like a bunch of different, factors. Um, and also, I think, I think of like willingness to pay quite a bit. Does the customer, target market, does the customer have like the willingness to pay? Because, like, you can have the best opportunity or idea, but like, if the customer, doesn't have any willingness to pay for it, or they're like, yeah, I love that at this price point, but like, you need, a different price point for the economics to work out, then, that's something to think about early as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I think about is just, especially with like services businesses, is like, how can we just make this like way easier, right? Um, and apply a more like modern approach to it. And just be like, okay, like, this process of doing things hasn't been updated, in a couple of years. Like, new technology has come out. If we were looking at this with fresh eyes, like, what's our hypothesis on like how we should do it? So, like, I think, yeah, those are all things. And then I guess, circling back, it's like, having some sort of unique, insight, is super key. I think, you can sort of just like, on one hand, like, there's a couple different schools of thought. Like, there's one school of thought, I think, that says pioneers get arrows in their back. You should always, don't be innovative necessarily, because, it's risky. You'll probably fail, blah, blah, blah. Just copy an existing business that's working, and put your own spin on it. Right. And that's totally fine. I think, there's a lot of businesses that, have been built that way. But the other thing is that, like, innovation is also cheaper than competition. Right. So it's
Yeah.
like, and I think there's probably like a middle ground. And that's kind of what we found with, I think, Testimonial Hero is like, it's not like at least our first thing that we did with Testimonial Hero was like, we're going to take, we're broadly in the video production space. We're going to innovate by saying like, we're going to, make it completely effortless to produce B2B customer testimonial videos. And, they're going to be fixed price, no travel fees anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter if it's in, London or Los Angeles or, whatever, like it's all going to be the same price and it's all going to be super easy. So like, you can sort of like, I think, take something, take a concept that you believe in, with a market that, it's a real need for, put just enough like innovation on it that it's like pretty different. And in my experience, like that, works pretty well. And obviously like, like niching down, there's always like power in niching down, especially like getting your message out there early. It's like, if you try to, appeal to everyone in your messaging, you're just going to appeal to no one. So big fan of just niching down, especially early on.
Well, so along those lines, so where do you think B2B entrepreneurship is going? Like, how is it evolving?
Yeah, so I think it's being, for a couple of things, like socially and culturally, I think it's getting more cool, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It's getting more, it used to be like, oh, consumer was all the rage, and like now, B2B is getting a lot more attractive and a lot, so culturally I think it's kind of coming into its own there. I think, we're always going to see sort of a kind of a cascading effect of like, what was new, what was, the current or popular or effective in consumer is always going to, in a couple of years, make its way to B2B, right? And like, we're seeing that now, and we have been seeing it for the past couple of years with like design and because like it's crazy, but like, like design was just something that like wasn't even a consideration for a long time in B2B, software crazy. Products. It's just like design, like that's not like, it's like, and now it's like, it's a core thesis of a lot of, different
box or whatever else.
Yeah. So it's like, I think so then the question is like, well, where is it heading? It's like, well, what can we derive from like consumer behavior for B2B? And like one example I think is like B2B marketplaces, right? So like, there haven't been to date like quite so many, B2B marketplaces, but consumer marketplaces have been like a massive, explosion. So I think like specifically we're going to see like, that's one example. Like I think we'll see like a lot more B2B marketplaces, being built like at scale in the next, 1, 3, 5 years for sure.
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting point, because you look at specifically like design, you mentioned mobile was one as well. So like looking at these things a little bit definitely gives you a sense of the momentum of where things are going. Takes a lot for taking the time, Sam. That's really appreciated. So where can people go to learn more about your work, your company, what you're focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure, Etienne. Always great to chat. And if anyone wants to learn more, testimonialhero.com, or just search Testimonial Hero, will pop up. And then on Twitter, I am just at Sam Shepler. And yeah, that's usually the best, easiest way to contact me.
Great. We'll point those out. And thanks for taking the time. It's really appreciated.
Absolutely. Take care.